General Santa Anna fled to Humansla, where other battle was fought, and he had to flee again. An infantry lieutenant wrote to his partners what happened after an officer named Walker was killed in battle. General Lane told us to, quote, avenge the death of the gallant Walker, took all we could lay hands on, and well and fearfully was his mandate obeyed. Grog shots were broken upon first, and then, maddened with liquor, every species of outrage was committed. Old women and girls were stripped from their clothing, and many suffered still greater outrages. Men were shot by dozens, their property, churches, stores, and dwelling houses ransacked. Dead horses and men lay about pretty thick, while drunken soldiers yelling and screeching were breaking open houses or chasing some poor Mexicans who had abandoned their houses and fled for life. Such a scene I never hoped to see again. It gave me a lamentable view of human nature and made me for the first time ashamed of my country. The editors of Chronicle of the Gringos sum up the attitude of the American soldiers to the war. Although they had volunteered to go to war, and by far the greater number of them honored their commitments by credibility, sustaining hardship in battle, and behaved as well as soldiers in the hostile country, are apt to behave. They did not like the army, they did not like the war, and generally speaking, they did not like Mexico or the Mexicans. This was the majority, disliking the job, resenting the discipline and caste system of the army, and wanting to get out and go home. One Pennsylvania volunteer, stationed at Matamoros later in the war, wrote, quote, we are under very strict discipline here. Some of our officers are very good men, but the balance of them are very tyrannical and brutal toward the men. Tonight on drill, an officer laid a soldier's skull open with his sword, but the time may come, and that soon whom officers when men will stand on equal footing. A soldier's life is very disgusting. On the night of August 15, 1847, volunteer regiments for Virginia, Mississippi, North Carolina rebelled in North Mexico against Colonel Robert Treat Payne. Payne killed a mutineer, but two of his lieutenants refused to help him quell the mutiny. The rebels were ultimately exonerated in an attempt to keep the peace. Desertion grew. In March 1847, the army reported over 1,000 deserters. The total number of deserters during the war was 9,207, 531 regulars, 3,876 volunteers. Those who did not desert became harder and harder to manage. General Cushing referred to 65 men in the 1st Regiment of the Massachusetts Army Infantry as, quote, incorrigibly mutinous and insubordinate, end quote. The glory of the victory was for the President and the generals, not the deserters, the dead, the wounded, or the 2nd Regiment of Mississippi Rifles. 167 died of disease. 2 regiments of Pennsylvania went out 1,800 strong and came home with 600. John Calhoun of South Carolina said in Congress that 20% of the troops had died of battle or sickness. The Massachusetts volunteers had started with 630 men. They came home with 300 dead, mostly from disease. And at the reception dinner on their return, their commander, General Cushing, were hissed by his men. The Cambridge Chronicle wrote, quote, charge of the most serious nature against one and all of these military officials dropped daily from the lips of the volunteers, end quote. As the veterans returned home, speculators immediately showed up to buy the land warrants given by the government. Many of the soldiers, desperate for money, sold their 160 acres for less than $50. The New York Commercial Advertiser said in June 1847, quote, it is a well-known fact that immense fortunes were made out of the poor soldiers who shed their blood in the Revolutionary War by speculators who preyed upon their distress. A similar system of depredation was practiced upon the soldiers of the last war. Mexico surrendered. There were calls among Americans to take all of Mexico. The Treaty of Guadalupe, Hidalgo, signed February 1848, just took half. The Texas boundary was set up at the Rio Grande. New Mexico and California were ceded. The United States paid Mexico $50 million, which led to the Whig intelligencer to conclude that, quote, we take nothing by conquest, thank God. All right, guys, thank you for listening in to this second half. I know it seemed a bit quick, but it is better off to make sure I can get it done and not have to take too much time for it to process and upload. Again, I hope you guys have been learning a lot from this year so far, and have a great day.